Hello and welcome. Looks like we have a few more people logging in, so let's just give them a few seconds and then we'll get started. In case you're wondering about this photograph is of the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge in Dallas. I'm standing right beside it, right after a storm with mud actually up to my ankles. It took about 5 years to build, and those center posts right there span about 400 feet in the air. It's quite an impressive structure that you can see from all around Dallas. All right, looks like everybody's logged in now, so I just want to welcome everybody to this webinar about improving compliance. My name is Hilton Goldrich, and I'll be your presenter tonight. We also have Richard here, who will be available for questions after the presentation. Looks like we have several doctors as well as team members with us. Some are existing clients, some are new clients. And there's a few doctors that are actually interested in using our products that have not signed up yet. So thank you all so much for joining us. We have a great group of people. I know your time is extremely valuable, so I really appreciate you spending time with us tonight. My goal tonight is to teach you something that will have a very positive impact in your practice. And I would like you at the end of this presentation to be able to implement with very little effort a system in your office for helping you do a better job with compliance. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the chat section, and we will address them at the end of the presentation because many of your questions will be answered during the talk. Just a little bit of history about me and the company. I have been practicing in Plano, Texas, which is just north of Dallas, for just over 20 years. And I don't know about your practice, but in my practice in Plano, sometimes we have patients that forget to wear their elastics. So while we're going through this presentation, I want you to think about two questions. The first question is, how do you remind your patients to wear their elastics between appointments? You go 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks between appointments. How do you remind them? And number two, what if a patient runs out of elastics in the middle of in between their appointments? What's the procedure in your office to get them more elastics? We will show you through this presentation about how simple that is to handle both those challenges, because I know those are challenges in most of our offices. So the way that we got started is for many years, I've always wanted to help our patients remember to wear their elastics. And 5 years ago, I had a patient named Richard. And I used to talk to Richard all the time about how I would like something to remind my patients to wear their elastics. Richard at the time was working in automation for a large semiconductor company. And he went away, put a team together, and 6 months later he came to me with an iPad with a prototype of what I'm going to show you tonight. We've been doing this now in my office. I've been sending reminders for about 4 years. We've been working on it for about 5 years. And as a company, we've sent over 8 million texts. And we have learned a lot from doctors all over the country that are using our system. And many of our capabilities and enhancements have actually come from our existing clients. So I really appreciate their feedback. We've also learned that it takes a lot more than just reminders to change a person's behavior. And we're going to talk about what those other things are. Reminders are not the whole game. So before we get started, I have a little video from Jen from Dr. Kupperman's office just talking about how she likes the system.
We love Orthodontext in our office because it's so easy to use. It's easy for us as a staff. It's easy for the patient themselves. An iPad is handed to them at their appointment. They set the times and when their reminders come through, and we're done. That's it.
And that is the feedback that we get from most offices that we work with. It's actually quite amazing. So let's take a look and see what we're going to cover tonight. First, we'll cover why is it important to improve compliance. That's why you guys are here, because if you had perfect compliance in your practice, you wouldn't need a system like this. We'll give you a simple formula on how to help improve compliance and give you an easy way to implement a system to help your patients with their elastics, with their brushing, or whatever it is you want them to comply with. We'll show you how Orthodontext can be a very cost-effective way of doing that. And finally, what's coming down the pike? What do we have in the works? I think you'll find this very exciting. You know, as orthodontists, we're always looking for that perfect appliance to take compliance away from the patient. We use Mara's, Herp's, Twin Force, Class 2 correctors, Dynaflex springs, pendulum appliances, you name it. We've tried everything. But as you know, they're not without their problems with breakage and so on and so forth. And we've tried TADs. We put TADs in to do all kinds of great things. We can do some amazing things like this. We can fix this full step Class 3. This is a patient of Dr. Chris Chang. If you haven't had a chance to see him, I would highly recommend seeing him speak. He's an amazing speaker. But look what he achieved with rubber bands and TADs without surgery. However, there's no way to get around something like this. No appliance can we put in the mouth that's going to remove compliance from the patient to wear an elastic like this. Or a rubber band like this. If you know of a midline treatment that doesn't require rubber bands, I would love to know. Or even something like this. How about a headgear? A face mask? You know, it's interesting. With an appliance like this, I find patients to be much more compliant, and I think it's because they're motivated to try to avoid surgery. So in order for us to achieve a perfect Class 1 occlusion, we still have to rely on this silly little piece of rubber band. Have you ever thought about how much non-compliance costs us in our practice? How much money we're throwing in the trash because patients aren't complying, and the number of extra appointments we're having to see them because they don't wear their elastics? It's a very hard number to calculate, but I'm going to try to just give you a small example of how much this could be costing us. Let's say we had 100 patients enrolled in Orthodontext, and only 25% of them saved one appointment because they wore their elastics better between appointments. And I'm not sure in your area of how much an appointment costs, but I've been asking orthodontists from the East Coast to the West Coast and all in the middle about how much they think an average appointment costs, and this is the range that I get, between $200 and $350. So we could save, by saving one appointment in a quarter of the patients out of 100, $5,000 to $8,700 a year. And that's only 100 patients enrolled. Most of our practices have more than 100 patients enrolled. So the dollars are staggering of how much money you could save. There's another cost, and that's the cost of longer treatment. We all know that with longer treatment times there's an increased chance of decalcification, root resorption, bracket failure, but most importantly, and I've been talking to consultants all around the country about this, consultants say that if you go beyond estimated completion time, patients refer less. And so the cost of over treatment time is huge. So knowing that, it is really important that we understand compliance and do everything we can to improve it. But the real question then is, why don't patients wear their elastics? And I say it's not really about orthodontics. We're talking about changing a behavior. It's really about trying to get somebody to change a behavior that they're not used to. And you know how difficult that is. We've all had challenges trying to change a behavior. And if it's about a behavior, then we can apply a behavior model. So in doing some research to validate that text reminders will work, we found a great behavior model to validate Orthodontext. It was developed by a professor at Stanford named B.J. Fogg, and here is what he has to say.
I teach at Stanford University, and I run what's called the Persuasive Technology Lab. That's all about how to use computers, whether it's mobile phones, websites, video games, to change people's attitudes and especially their behaviors. The conclusion is there's a formula for behavior change, and it's not so complicated. Simple. For a behavior to happen, three things have to come together at once. And so I gave it a name. I call it the fog behavior model. Trigger, you have to have the ability to do it, and you have to have the motivation to do it. Those three things have to happen at the exact same moment. And if any one of those things is missing, it won't happen. Clear. And I knew triggers was important, but I didn't develop triggers till later. And once I looked at triggers, and especially what I call hot triggers are things you can do right now. A billboard is a cold trigger. Something in text is a hot trigger. Then I realized hot triggers really was the whole game. So I'll leave you with one phrase, and this is the most important 9 words in behavior design to change behaviors. It's put hot triggers in the path of motivated people.
Wow, how great is that? Behavior equals MAT. Motivation, ability, and triggers. Makes total sense. And when I saw that, a light bulb went off. And I thought, we could totally apply this to orthodontics. So our goal with Orthodontext is to put hot triggers in the path of motivated patients. So let me demonstrate this with a little story. Think back to the last time you did not answer your phone. It rang, that's your trigger, you didn't answer it. One, you didn't answer it because maybe you were in the shower and you didn't have the ability to answer the phone. Or maybe it's your mother-in-law and you didn't have the motivation to answer the phone. That's a simple example of how this works. So let's look at motivation. How many times have you heard this? I wore my elastics really well for the first 2 weeks after the last appointment. That's because they were motivated at the appointment. However, the 2 weeks later, their motivation waned because our motivation goes up and down. And what we want to do is we want to structure behavior when the motivation is high so it's easy to do when the motivation is low. And let me give you an example of that. First week of January, you are motivated to lose weight, eat better. We've all been there. We've all done that. And then come February, come March, we kind of slack off. So what you want to do the first week of January is schedule your appointments with your trainer for the next 6 months. That way when in February you're not motivated, you still have that commitment to meet your trainer. Here's my first pearl for the night. I'll embed pearls throughout the presentation that I think you'll really benefit from. Start your elastics early and use them very lightly. And the reason is patients are motivated when they get their braces on, and their motivation wanes as the time goes on. And then also set up reminders in their calendar or enroll them in a system like Orthodontext to remind them to wear their elastics or brush their teeth or whatever it is you want to remind them to do. And then of course make sure mom and dad know what they're for because they could help be a trigger as well and help motivate their kids. And this is just an example of motivation, how it goes up and down. And the orange times are when motivation's high, and it's a temporary opportunity to do hard things. This is all on BJ's website. Now let's talk about ability. You want to make sure you give patients all the tools necessary to be able to wear their elastics, because if they don't have the ability, they're not going to do it. You want to practice their manual dexterity in the mirror. Give them the plastic tool. We all use these plastic tools, but make sure they have them in their packets when they leave your office. Give them an instruction card with a diagram and a reminder information. This is the reminder card or the elastic card that we use in our office. And here's my second pearl. On the back side, we have a little paragraph here on how they can actually sign themselves up for reminders through our practice website. And of course, be generous with your elastics. Give them enough so they can put them in their wallet, they can put some in their locker at school, next to their bed. Just make sure they're fully supplied with rubber bands. This is my third pearl, and I think you'll really like this. We have a supply box behind our office so patients can come and get rubber bands any time of the day or night or weekends. That's been a really big hit in our office. Most practices do a good job with motivation and ability, but where I think we fall short is with triggers. There's all different kinds of triggers. There's natural triggers, like waking up is a natural trigger. You may have to take a pill when you wake up. That's a natural trigger. Or you may want to exercise, and that's a natural trigger to exercise. Eating a meal is a natural trigger. You have to take a pill with your meal. That meal triggers you to take the pill. There's a lot of other kinds of triggers, like this when you're at lunchtime and you take your rubber bands off, keep them on your finger. And here is another kind of trigger. This is Kaylin, and Kaylin had Down syndrome. And when I saw her bite full step class 3, I had no idea how I would fix this. However, we had a very motivated mother, and the mother was our trigger. And the mother would put her rubber bands on in the morning, take them off before dinner, and put them on after dinner. And that's the result we were able to achieve with her rubber bands being worn almost 24 hours a day. Or in this situation, it might be a very determined mother. And if you have triggers like this, you don't need triggers like texts. More triggers. There's cold triggers like BJ mentioned in his video. And then there's hot triggers, of course, there's texts. For those of you that were at the AAO this year, the editor of the Angle Orthodontic Journal actually spoke about these two studies. And both studies found that sending text to patients was effective in improving oral hygiene compliance. So, those two questions that I posed in the beginning. How do you remind your patients between appointments to wear their elastics, and how do patients get more elastics? Well, what I did for many years before I met Richard was I would take a patient's phone, have them log into their phone, and add a reminder into their calendar. And that was sort of a pain. So our vision when we sat down and Richard developed this product and we sat down to refine it, I wanted it to be very, very simple, and I called it Apple Simple. I wanted very little administration on the staff part, and I wanted to set it and forget it, where we don't have to control it, the patient can control it, but we could initiate it. Check this out. This is really, really neat. This is the magic of our system. Patient receives an elastic reminder at the specified time that they put in. You're doing an awesome job with your elastics. Keep up the good work. The next one they receive, which is different, so there's different reminders come every time it says something different. If you're running low on rubber bands, please reply to this text and we'll mail some to you. Watch this. They reply, I ran out of elastics, can you please send me more? That reply goes to an office email. What's nice about that is our staff don't have to learn anything new. They all know how to email, and all they have to do is respond to that email, and it goes back to the patient's text. How awesome is that? Doctor's response, Julie writes, sure, they will be in the mail today. Thanks for being such a great patient. Now, what's really cool about this is it goes from email to text and text to email. However, some of the messages also help with motivation, and some of the other messages help with ability, and all the messages are triggers. That is what it's all about. So let's take a look at Orthodontext, and I'll show you how I use it in my office. First question is, how do we enter a patient? Well, there's many ways to enter patients. One is through a website link on the practice website, with desktop links or iPad links, and now we also have Dolphin integration, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is my website page. I have two links right there, the blue one and the orange one. Patient from home can click on the blue link and it opens up the Add Patient screen. These are our desktops. We could have the links on the desktops. You just click it and open it. Dolphin integration. This is in Dolphin management. And this is in Dolphin imaging. We do not have to have Dolphin do anything. You can add them to your Dolphin just with the instructions that we give you. So this is the page it opens up. Oh, by the way, if you don't have Dolphin, it's just a web browser. So links on your desktop, if you have a cloud-based software program, you just make it a favorite on the top. It's very, very simple. Add the patient's name, and actually what we do is we hand the patient either an iPad or a keyboard, because it's really important that the patient enter their information themselves, because that way they have buy-in. You didn't force them to do it, they did it themselves. Put the phone number, then they hand the iPad back to us. We make sure they have a smartphone. All these reminders are customized by the practice, just one time. They select which one. Patient selects the times they would like their reminders. You can also do alternating weeks or a custom cycle. For instance, put down when you wanted to start, which could be any date in the future. And you could do it every 5 days, every 8 days. If someone's using Excellident and they want to speed up their reminders to change their aligners, you can do that. Make sure they have unlimited texting and then click sign up. They'll get a text to their phone that welcomes them to Orthodontext reminders, and it lets them know that they can turn these off at any time by replying stop. Once they get that and they're in the system, they can go back to your website from home, click on this orange link, and put their phone number in there and change the times themselves. Practice doesn't have to be bothered with changing a patient's times. Brings up their specific reminder page, they enter a change code, and they save the changes and their times are done. Let's talk about setup. It does work right. Once you sign up, you already can use it. However, you can also customize it for your needs, and that's what we recommend. So the first thing you'll do is go to the Jumpstart page, and there's 3 links there. The first link is an email that you just copy into an email to your webmaster to place those links. Those links are specific for you onto your website. The second link, which is great, you send this to patients. You just copy and paste it, maybe read it and add some words if you would like, and then patients can sign themselves up from home through your website. Obviously, only do this once your link is on your website. And this is the Dolphin integration screen. It tells you exactly what to do. It's very simple, just takes a few minutes. Then you set up reminders. And what we've learned, we used to send out only static reminders, which means it's the same message every time. But now it's a different message rotating amongst 60 or 70 reminders. What we've learned is that patients read their texts. And the reason why we know why patients read their texts is because they request rubber bands all the time. So the question is, what are you doing right now to have patients request rubber bands? They have to bug their mom. The mom has to look up your phone number. Mom has to call your office. Your office has to pick up the phone. Now they can simply just type, please send me more, and they've got more in the mail. Here's how you set up the reminders. You sign into your account, click on admin, click on reminders. You can see it's blank up at the top. Type in whatever name you want to call it, and you just select the reminders you want. We have a library of about 50 different elastic reminders, but you can make custom ones just like this. You want to add a custom message. You can say whatever you want. This is really slick because you can put whatever you want in there. Thanks for being such a great patient. You're doing an outstanding job with your braces. Keep it up. You can put your name at the end. You click that, and now it's going to go into the rotation. Thank you so much for referring your friends and family. It goes into that rotation, and then from that point on, it's just going to rotate through those messages. You can see the dynamic message up there, but you want to make sure that you disable the static reminder. Otherwise, it'll confuse your staff. Now, if you go into add a patient, that reminder we just added is going to be on the bottom of that list, but we don't want it on the bottom because that's the most popular. We want to move it to the top. You go down below here and just drag it to the top, and then from that point on, it'll be on the top of the list. And there it is, on top of the list. That's it. That's how you set up reminders. Pearl number 4. Set up a reminder that tells your patient to like you on Facebook with a link to your Facebook page. So they can just click on it and like you. Here's another reminder that I like. Take a picture. If a patient's gone away for a long time, I like them to send me a picture in between the time of their visits. Because if they're going to be gone for 4 months, I'd like to see if they're wearing elastics, make sure we don't overcorrect. And that's pearl number 5. This is your reminder to take a picture of your bite and teeth and email it to info@plano braces. Thank you, Dr. G. Pearl number 6. If you want to send reminders to turn their expander, embed a YouTube video that you could do or one that's online, and they click on that, it shows them how to turn their expander. The possibilities are endless. So let's go to the settings section. If you click on the settings section, you fill in the email on the top. That's the email that will receive the texts when they come through as an email. The responses. Now here's your responses page. If you look here, you can see there's many. This is one practice, and there's many times that patients are recommending or requesting elastics. And so what were they doing before? How would they get elastics in between appointments? These are the links that we talked about to send to your webmaster with that email. That's it. That's the whole setup. Very simple. Only one time you have to do it, and it'll take less than 10 minutes. Another cool feature is a reward system. If you'd like to set up a reward system where it encourages patients to read their texts, you can say you're going to give away Starbucks cards. There's that set up, but now you can let everybody know that's receiving text to be sure to read your texts from your awesome orthodontist. We will be giving away gift cards to Starbucks. That way you can announce to everybody, be sure and read your texts. How cool is that? And it's so simple. We have practices sending out 27,000 texts a month. You can send 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 without hardly any effort. It's very powerful. But wait, there's more. Check this out. This is coming. Check this out. Care texts. Hi, just checking in to see how you are doing after getting your braces. Text if you have any questions. Have a great day, Dr. G. Practice sends that out automatically it's just set up when you put someone's braces on, it'll go out in the future whenever you want it to go out. Patient can reply, my teeth feel very sore. Is that normal? Practice can respond via email. Yes, for the first few days after getting braces, your teeth will feel tender. That is normal, Dr. G. Richard's team is working to refine this because right now you can do this, but it's a little bit tricky just because if you don't do it exactly correctly, you could send this out more than once. So Richard's working with his team to refine it and maybe even include the patient's name. Hi, Johnny. Just checking in. Now, don't believe me. Let me show you what some of our customers are saying. Aaron Molan, who actually talks about us in his lecture at the AAO, he said, well received and helped many patients move their treatment forward. Team enjoys the user-friendly website. Vladimir from Houston, seen great result. He's a big Excelident user and uses it with his Excelident patients. Tito from San Antonio, it takes the nag factor away from us and from the parents. John Pobans, let me show you what he has to say. He says it's well worth the investment, but he gave us a little testimonial on video.
I've been amazed at how effective it is to give each patient a little bit of a digital nudge to have them do what I ask them to do. If I frame it for them chairside and outline and give them something written, material, it's one thing. But if they actually get something to their phone consistently throughout the day at specific times when I want them to comply, they seem to do a much better job.
And then Rob Sheffield out of California, he was actually featured in this journal or magazine, and he listed us as one of his top favorite things in his life. And he's actually sending out over 25,000 messages a month. Patients are also raving about us. An amazing idea. Text came just in the nick of time. Kate. And Margaret, this is actually a mom of a patient. I appreciate the new text message reminder service. Appreciate the innovativeness. It helps me in transitioning responsibility to Susie for her affairs. So, the benefits. What are the benefits of orthodontics? We've been through a lot of information today, but let's go through some of the benefits. One is you set it and forget it. The practice has very, very little to do to get this to work. Dual control, both the patient and the practice. Rotating messages and rewards add motivation, ability, and triggers, just like mentioned by Dr. Fogg. Two-way communication is huge, very, very powerful. And unlimited texts per month. With zero doctor time and almost zero staff time. I say almost zero because they do have to ask the patient if they would like reminders and respond to an email if they get an email. Other benefits are patients and parents really appreciate the service. The patients are signing up themselves. They have buy-in and opt-in. We touch our patients every day, 2-3 times a day, which brings top-of-mind awareness to your patients, and it also documents. When a patient types stop, your staff gets an email, and that email should be documented in the patient's chart. Just a chart note that they stopped their reminders. And then there's marketing that you can use this for as well, thanking for referring and so on. I actually recently just supplied an elementary school around the corner from me the service to remind their, or to let their student body know that they were closed for a snow day. So in summary, poor compliance costs our practices so much money that we don't even realize it. To change a behavior, you need three things: motivation, ability, and trigger. With better compliance, we can reduce the number of visits and reduce treatment time. And Orthodontics offers a very simple, automated method of placing hot triggers in the path of motivated patients. Parents, patients, and orthodontists truly do love it. I want to thank you so much for giving me these 30 minutes. I truly appreciate you listening to me, and I hope that this information that I provided today will help you improve compliance in your practice. And we're going to take questions now. When we switch over to questions, we have to switch the webinar to a different system. And so this may take just maybe 20 to 30 seconds, and then we'll be able to answer your questions. So hang tight. We'll be with you in just a second. Don't hang up, because I know we've had some questions in our chat, in the chat feature, and we will answer those in just a minute. Thank you very much.